Hello, my name is Christensen. I bring you greetings from the Freedom Point Church in New Hampshire. Thank you for taking the time to be a part of this workshop today. My prayer has been that what we all share today will be of help to you in your particular situation. I'm honored to have been asked to share a little bit about my experience in caregiving during the sacred journey that my wife Rebecca and I participated in, along with many of our friends and family. In early 2005, Rebecca started experiencing muscular stiffness, weakness, and fatigue. Over the next 9 years, her motor skills completely deteriorated. After initially being diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, by 2007 or 2008, she was diagnosed with MSA, multiple system atrophy. Multiple system atrophy is a rare degenerative neurological disorder affecting the body's involuntary functions like blood pressure, breathing, bladder function, and overall motor control. Basically, over time, your body's systems shut down. Rebecca spent the last 3.5 years of her life lying on a massage table, unable to speak or do anything for herself. Our daughter, Jenna, Rebecca's mom, Betsy, and I were her primary caregivers, yet countless others also participated in this blessed adventure with us. Rebecca's body finally shut down shop and gave up her spirit at 7:30 a.m. on December 27th, 2013. Countless times in my life, I've seen that God is much less sentimental about our physical and emotional suffering than we are. We tend toward a negative view and think something is wrong with us if we're suffering. God looks at it as an opportunity for Him to shine, to develop our relationship with Him and increase our faith. I have decided, because of this experience, that I'm going to look at all suffering as good, even the smallest of sufferings, and that they are a blessing. Caregiving is taxing. It challenges all of who we are and what we believe. It doesn't care if we're tired. It doesn't care if we're hurting. It is relentless. Caregiving is also a blessing because it challenges all of who we are and what we believe. Certainly, it motivates us to pray and to ponder the will and heart of God. These paradoxes cause me to think of the words of the Hebrew writer when he reminds us that no hardship seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. I praise God that I have been given the ability to choose how my adventures impact me. Sometimes I just wish I could get a better handle on when later on would come. Today, I have 3 things I'd like to share with you that have helped me as I experience my life. One is an overarching principle, so I'm going to repeat it in order to stress its importance. They all overlap with one another, but in the end, bring me peace, perseverance, and bring spiritual fruit to my life. These are the same 3 things I stress when I share about the grief process, and they have become a general cornerstone in my life. There's much more to say about all of them, but I will try to prune things down and keep it to 15 or 20 minutes. So let's jump right in. Number 1, perspective. In Romans 8:28, we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. Whatever your situation, however difficult and deep our sufferings may be, God can work and will work, if we let Him, for our good. He's not against us. He is for us. He wants to help us become like Jesus with ever-increasing glory. Through this process, I've had to constantly ask myself the question, is this what I want? Do I want my good to become more and more like Jesus? Or do I just want this to be over? I have chosen that one of my most important values in life will be understanding and becoming like Jesus. Not that I will become like Jesus and not simply behave as I think I should. I've boiled this down to the mantra: become, don't behave. Secondly, preparation. When we read in Matthew 7, verses 24 through 27, we read the story about building our house on the rock or building our house on the sand. When we read this passage, we learn that both of the homes experience the storms. If you're here today, I'm sure you would agree that all of us experience difficulty in life. But as you prepare to give great care to your spouse, build a great us. We should always be in preparation mode because you never know what's coming. Build now and keep building. When it gets hard, prepare some more and be amazed how God works in you, how God works in your spouse, and how God works through and in the people around you. This makes me think about preparing through my relationship with God, personally and with my spouse. I remember the times of reading the Bible to Rebecca and reading spiritual books and praying together during her illness. Those were very special times. Beyond just the spiritual nature of the relationship, build your personal relationship. One of my words that I like to think about in all of my relationships is having curiosity. Wanting to know her deeply, wanting to talk with her and learn how she viewed life, and even as she was going through the difficulties of being ill. Giving service to her. Oddly, as I thought about this, I thought even in healthy marriages, we're already spiritual caregivers, there to take care of each other, to practice and to prepare for what might come in the future. Part of our preparation comes with building great relationships with friends who are like-minded in seeking God. To open up with them, to be vulnerable about our struggles, our pains, so that when the real hardships come, you have relationships that are knit together spiritually with and by God. If I were to start sharing the names and the stories of all the people that gave to us and served us during Rebecca's illness, my entire 20 minutes would be gone. So prepare. Be prepared so you can laugh at the days to come because of the strength of your spiritual relationship and your personal relationship. Thirdly, our overarching principle, once again, perspective. In Romans 12, verses 1 and 2, Paul tells us that, "Therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to Him. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will." This may well be my favorite passage in the Bible. I can talk for hours on this passage. It's deep and it's profound. During the caregiving times, I'm sure it's common to wonder what God's up to. I certainly remember those days. What does He want from me? Why does it have to be this way? It wasn't supposed to turn out like this. Why is my loved one sick? Why us? Why me? What about all of our dreams and plans? All of these questions are reasonable and real, but they can tend to draw us into a posture of self focus, disagreement, and sometimes even anger toward God if we don't get concrete answers that make us feel better. When this begins, we must realize that we have chosen a life of love, agape love, self sacrificing love, for better or worse, in sickness and in health. Do not conform to the pattern of the world. I spent a lot of time talking to myself saying, I also think like this, that do not conform to the pattern of my flesh, my selfishness that just wants this to be over. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. One of my favorite things that I ask myself now, even, but learn to ask myself every day, how can I think about this differently? When I would bristle and fight against the difficulty of everything, the emotional hardship, the way that it was interfering with what I wanted to do. When I get like that, I find no peace. When I realize that God is helping me through the situation to understand the heart and character of Himself and of Jesus, helps me to choose a path of agape and self-sacrifice, to be the image bearer of God I was created to be. This calms my questions and brings my soul to rest. It allows me to do what I call live in the question and not need an answer right away. Let Him show me the way. Next, another P word, participation. I use the same scripture for this. Romans 12, 1 and 2. Offer yourself as a living sacrifice. It's a choice to participate with our spouse, with our friends, with our God, in the works He has planned for us to do, and helping us to be the image bearer He hopes we will choose. The caregiver to our spouse presents itself. We have many choices. I have seen many just simply ignore the difficulty and pretend it's not there. Some even walk away from their marriages. For me, the most difficult thing to resist was to not shut down emotionally. I'm really good at grinning and bearing it, to suck it up, to tough it out. And I would call that perseverance. I have come to see that that is perseverance, but without faith. Perseverance with faith looks forward to what will be produced later on the other side of trusting God. This is the perseverance that I have now labeled for myself participation, to participate in my life. It brings transformation. You know, in the Romans 12 passage here, the Greek word that's translated into transformation is metamorphou, or some such thing. It's the word from which we get our word metamorphosis, which is the process by which a caterpillar turns into a butterfly. In metamorphosis, the caterpillar initiates the spinning of the chrysalis. If it does not initiate the transformation, it will wither up and die. If it does initiate, it is transformed and becomes a beautiful butterfly. This is one of the most amazing processes of life. The caterpillar actually changes form and becomes a completely different animal. It starts crawling around on the ground face down and transforms into a beautiful soaring butterfly flying between flowers. Do you see the metaphor? I am sure that God has put this process there so that we might learn to have faith in Him, to participate in our hardships, to engage and be transformed. How does this work? What does it look like in real life? I've tried to boil it down to one thing: to let God, my spouse, and my friends all the way in to my inner world. We call this vulnerability. It's not just openness, it is vulnerability. When we're vulnerable, we must always have our eyes fixed on Jesus, knowing what will be produced. This vulnerability is confirmation of our faith in God's promises. Participate vulnerably in your life, in your hardship, with God, with your spouse, and with others. And finally, our overarching principle, once again, perspective. I've used it 3 times because it's so difficult to keep our perspective during these really hard times sometimes. It's probably most important, and it's the most difficult to sustain. I've come to believe that our lives here on this earth are mostly about preparing us for the life to come. If we participate vulnerably and wholeheartedly, if we seek to be transformed into the likeness of Jesus, to be an image bearer of and for God, then we will be prepared and experience the beauty, joy, and peace of eternal life. You know, there was no greater challenge. There's not ever been a greater challenge in my life than to care for Rebecca. To watch the person I love wither away physically over 9 years and die in my arms. It was brutal and heartrending. Yet, there's been no greater honor and joy in my life to have cared for Rebecca. To see her ready to seal the deal on eternal life at her physical death. To know and see that all of us who participated in that process were transformed. We were all transformed in the ways that God's good, pleasing, and perfect will desired, so that we might each, in our own way, be image bearers of the King. I'll close with a final perspective passage found in 1 Peter 1. Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. In His great mercy, He has given us new birth into a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, and into an inheritance that can never perish, spoil, or fade. This inheritance is kept in heaven for you, who, through faith, are shielded by God's power until the coming of the salvation that is ready to be revealed in the last time. In all this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while you may have had to suffer grief in all kinds of trials. These have come so that the proven genuineness of your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire, may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed. Though you have not seen Him, you love Him. And even though you do not see Him now, you believe in Him and are filled with an inexpressible and glorious joy, for you are receiving the end result of your faith, the salvation of your souls. Thank you for listening to me. I pray that something that I've shared is meaningful to you. Have a great day.
Good morning. My name is Chantal Cornely, and I am here to share with you my journey. Um, I was married to Wilner for 28 years, and he died on March 18th, 2015. My journey through sickness began on on December 24th, 2013. We were heading to Chicago to visit our children for Christmas, and Wilner was going and having a lot of pain, and we decided that when we get there, we would just go and visit the doctor to get something for his pain. The pain got so intense when we got to Chicago that we ended up going to the emergency room on December 24th, 2013. The doctors did a lot of tests and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with Wilner. So finally, the doctor came and said to us, you know what, I'll just do one last test and then let's hope that it's just a kidney stone and that can be fixed pretty quickly. So we were praying, and as Wilner was wheeled out to get a scan, and so he was wheeled back, and the doctor came back a few minutes later and asked Wilner. He said, "Excuse me, Mr. Cornley, are you a smoker?" And we just looked at each other, and we were like laughing. We're like, "Oh, surely not. No, never smoked in his life." And she says, "Well, I have some disturbing news. I'm really sorry to tell you that, but you have pancreatic cancer." We were just still, had this smile on our faces. And she said, "Do you understand what I'm saying?" And we said, "Yes, we understand." And she says, "We'll have to do a lot more, a few more tests, MRIs and scans to figure out what stage you're in." So she said, "Since you guys are going to be praying, pray that it's not an adenosarcoma and it's not at the end tail of the pancreas." So at that moment in time, our children, Dominique, Frederic, Michael, and Dominique's fiance were with us. And we just started to pray and make phone calls, as many phone calls as we could, to family, to friends, to people that we were in the ministry, to ask them to solicit their prayers for Wilner. And Wilner was wheeled in, and we were on the phone. And when he came back, and we were still praying with him, and the doctor came back, and she said, "I am so sorry to tell you that you have stage 4 pancreatic cancer." At that point in time, I asked myself, did God not hear us? Didn't he hear my prayers? Doesn't he know what Wilner has done? Couldn't this be for someone who was a murderer, someone who was a pedophile, someone who did wrong and hurt other people? Why Wilner? So at that point in time, I just couldn't understand what was happening. And eventually we took some appointments and we headed home. And that night I remembered Wilner and I just holding each other so tight and crying. And at that point in time, I just had no more tears left. I was devastated. And I said to him, why is this happening? And he said to me, he took my hands, he held my hands, and he said, "Chantu, would it matter if you knew why? What difference would it make?" And he said, quoting Job, "Do we just accept good from God and not the hard things from him?" And I was just like flabbergasted. So I remember going to the bathroom, turning on the water and crying. I was crying to God. I was saying, "God, I can't do this. Because at that point in time, Wilner was given 3 to 6 months to live. And I said, God, I need more time. I need more time with Wilner because I don't want to lose my faith. I don't want to lose my faith in you. I want to know that you are going to do this for me. And of course, God was faithful. He worked it out. He helped us to do the best that we could. He sent friends, Beth and Dave Pakta, to help us to gather all the information that we needed so that we could head down to New York. We spoke to the Powells in New York, and they opened up their home to us so that Wilner could go to the Sloan Kettering hospital that dealt with all kinds of cancers. So Wilner was able to get on a clinical trial, and we were there for 6 months. We were so grateful to God because of all that he has done, and the fact that Wilner was at the best hospital possible. And to have the help and support of Sam and Cynthia at that time, oh my goodness, it was just unbelievable. But we were so grateful. Wilner and I decided that we will be grateful for every little thing, every person that touched him, every person who said hello to him. So the doctors, the nurses, everyone, we were just so grateful and thankful. And God just really helped our hearts and sent people, whether family, friends from different countries, to come and visit Wilner while we were in New York. And so I saw God's blessing through that. I saw him move in such an incredible way that Wilner, as he was going through the process of this journey through sickness, that he was able to marry our daughter, and he was able to see our son get graduate from college. And so to me, that was like God just answering my prayers when I asked him to give me more time with Wilner. And then it was the journey through pain. As Wilner finished his chemo, he started getting headaches, and I was concerned about that. I called the doctors and I said, he's getting headaches. I just want to make sure that he's okay. We go there, and lo and behold, they ran some tests and came back, and we were praying, of course, as usual. And they said, "I'm so sorry. Wilner's cancer spread to his brain." And at that point in time, I felt as if my world just ended. I just felt like, what am I going to do without Wilner? Can I live without Wilner? Because we were always together from the time I was 18 years old. And it was my heart felt as if it was being torn apart. And so we continued to pray. And as Wilner went through that, I was just amazed again at God and understanding that we need people in our lives and we need to continue to go to God. I lived in the Psalms. I was reading Psalms and lived in the Psalms because I felt like a lot of the Psalms expressed my heart and what I was feeling at that time. And so as time went on, the headaches got so bad that I had to, although I was taking care of Wilner at home, I had to call the hospital and have him be at hospice at the hospital. And we were there for 19 days. And during that time, it was really challenging. And I know that Wilner just felt like he was being a burden to me. And I said to him, honey, this is just part of our vows. This is the part about sickness and health. And I said, it is my ultimate pleasure to serve you and to take care of you. You are my husband. And I love you. And I know that from the time that Wilner got sick, I never stopped telling him every day. I don't know how many times a day I would tell him how much I love him and how much I appreciate him, and told him the things that I appreciated about him, because I wanted him to feel totally loved through all this process. And I remember as we were in the hospital going through that pain, I decided that I wanted Wilner to know that even in death, that he would be the one that I love and respected with all of my heart. I spoke to the nurses, to the staff there, and I asked them, they told me what the process was when Wilner would pass, that they would wash him before the funeral home would come to get him. And I asked them if I could do that for him. And they gave me the permission. So we were all gathered at his bedside. And as per usual, we would sing and pray and read the Bible for the 19 days that Wilner was there. And that day, we held his hands. And as he took his last, he left us. And I remember telling him, honey, it's okay. You can go. God is going to take care of us. God will supply everything that we need. And he took his last and he left. And the rest of the family left. And I was able to wash him. And as I cried, I washed him. I let him know how much I loved him and how much he would be missed and how much he means to me. And I had his favorite soap, his favorite body oil, and his favorite cologne. And I washed him. And then my daughter, towards the end, came and helped me wash his legs and his feet. And he was gone. And now the journey through grief and healing. And I know that sometimes the process is really difficult, because at that point in time, I was asking myself, who am I without Wilner? I couldn't figure it out. And still at times I'm still figuring it out. And there would be moments that I would just stay and cry. I would hear a song. I would hear someone's voice, the intonation of someone's voice, a smell I would just start crying. And it continued for a long time, for a few years. Every Sunday when I would go to church, I would cry. I would cry at every service. And I remember right after Wilner passed, when I went to church, I didn't know where to sit. I didn't know if I should sit with the marrieds, if I should sit with the singles. And it was just so traumatic for me. When my friend Marie heard that, she drove down about an hour away from the ministry where she was, and she came and sat with me. To me, that's God's love. That's God taking care of me and my family and my children. And so I was just so amazed at what God was doing. And when I moved closer to the ministry that we used to lead in, and basically moved about less than 10 minutes away from the cemetery. And for me, that's how I grieved. I would go to the cemetery every day. I would go and have my quiet time there, see Wilner, see his grave, talk to him. That was my process of grieving. And now I still miss him terribly. But when I think about him, I don't cry anymore. I'm just so grateful and thankful to God for having given me such an incredible man in my life. And I know that God, his whole purpose for us, it's about keeping our relationship with him. And I know that God is watching over me, and he's watching over all of us who are grieving, who are going through this whole process. And what I want to encourage us is that we should not go through a process like this alone. We need a community to put their arms around us. We need people to lift us up, encourage us, and build us when we are at our worst, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And one of the scriptures that helped me a lot is in Isaiah 41, and I pray that it helps you too. It says, "So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." And I know at this time that I am still in the process. And no one can tell you how long your grieving will be, but understanding that you will heal at the same time. And so, like I said, when I think of Wilner, I just thank God for him. I just thank God that he gave me the best that I could have. God took care of me in that way. And I know for me personally, I just feel like God, like Jesus said in John 10:10, at the John 10:10, the last part of it is he says, he came to give us life and to give it to the full. And we need to continue to live life to the full, because I know that Wilner wouldn't want to see me just devastated, because he knows I have God. And God doesn't want us to be that way. Let us lean on God as I've leaned on him through the help of friends and through pouring myself in his word. And I pray that God will bless you through your journey. Thank you.
I want to thank Carl, and I want to thank Chantal, and I want to thank all of you who are in the chat. And I do apologize for the technical difficulties. God is the ultimate caregiver, right? And
Yes.
for all of you who are in the battle, who are loving and taking care of someone, it is truly an honor. And even for myself, losing most of my family, as some of you may know, but most of you don't. This is a very cathartic time, and I'm so honored to be here. And Chantal, what an amazing story. Courageous. Carl, my husband had the chance to meet your wife, and I never did, and I'm so sorry. But you know something, I just wanted to encourage you all that we can laugh again because God allows it to be. And I just wanted to thank you all for taking the time to be here. And if there was any questions, I think we only have maybe 2 minutes. Not sure. I know that you had done a great job of fielding questions prior to my technical difficulties, but I just wanted to turn it over to Carl and Chantal for any closing thoughts.
Are there any, have we gotten any questions come out?
No, no.
I know that I had one, and you know, one of the things that I think is important to note here, you know, Chantal and I both were in marriages where both of us were disciples, and that's probably an easier road, perhaps, than when only one of the spouses is trying to follow Jesus and, you know, is looking for the growth and all that kind of thing. But I think that the ideas and principles, I mean, really, that I see both of us having put forth here can be applied to ourselves. And because I think that God has a journey for you, and whatever it is, you know, God has a journey for you, and gather people around you who will help you to. I call them my people. And who are my people? Well, my people all know who they are, because they're the ones that enabled me to find my way through, as Roger calls it, the valley of the shadow of death, you know. And so I just wanted to bring that up, because I know that sometimes, you know, when we feel like we can be very much alone in the journey, you know, and it's in some ways you are, and in some ways you're not. And I think gather people around you that will help you and strengthen you, and get you to be able to get to the other side of whatever that journey is, and prepare you to meet God and to become the image bearer that He has designed for you, already, and that you are eagerly pursuing, I'm sure.
Amen. Yeah, I think just in thinking through this, we are all going through a process, our own personal processes, and all of us have our spouses that either have dementia or cancer or anything else. Um, and I think that it's important for us to realize that we need help as well. As we give help to our spouses, we need to be refreshed. We need to know that um, we have the right to feel okay through that process. And I know it took me a while to think that way because I wanted to be there for Wilner. And when Carl said we all go through the same process, it's about our walk with God eventually. Whether our spouse is a disciple or not, it disrupts what they go through, disrupts our walk with God. And so it's delving into it. I remember not even knowing what to do after Wilner died. I was talking to a friend of mine who had lost her husband years and years ago. And I said, I'm reading, but I can't get anything. I'm not getting anything from reading. And she said, Chantal, just check in with God. At a certain point, your heart will catch up. And that's what I did. I'm like, God, I'm checking in. So please, as you go through your process, check in with God and take time to be with friends. If someone can, if you're the sole person that takes care of your husband, find out if a family member can stay with them for a while, even for an hour, so that you can get a little bit of respite, so that you can recharge. Because I found that when I would go, and even if it's for 30 minutes, I would go and grab something at the store. I see something different. I smell something different. It just helps me to come back with a different perspective to be able to give to my husband again. And so we need that, whether it's playing cards, whether it's being with your husband, watching a movie, being with your wife, watching a movie together, something that you enjoy doing, do that together so that you can be able to withstand and continue to go through your process.
Amen. Thank you so much. And Susan Widmer in the chat had said, thank you for this inspiring and practical time of sharing. It is helpful in so many ways. And also, lastly, from Kristen Nisser, I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correct, and I do apologize. I'm okay with praying according to God's will and that his will is always the best for our lives. But passages like this are, let me just see, are difficult for me. This is the confidence we have in approaching God, that if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us. 15, and if we know that when he hears us, whatever we ask, we know that we have and what we have of him.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So I can quickly respond to that, Kristen. We had early on when Rebecca first started getting sick, a very specific prayer answered in the affirmative that we all thought she was going to get well. And then she didn't. And that was a pretty challenging time for our family, for our friends, for those who were close to her, because we sort of bought into the answer, and very, very hard. But at the end of the day, God's will is that she'll be better. She's better now. you know, this is our situation. I don't know your specific situation, sister. But I do think that these are the hard grappling times where we really need to have people that we're super close to, that where we really share the vulnerability. Thank you. That's really opening your inner world right there by asking that question, right? And find people around, gather people around you that you can talk to about that. God does not cease to be God, and His love doesn't go anywhere. It's just as I said in my little talk, like I think that God is refining us through our difficulties and not trying to harm us. And it's like a lot of times it's just not what we want.
Yeah.
It's not the way we want it to be. And I understand that and I'm sorry, but he is refining you and he has chosen you. You are strong enough
Yeah.
because he's allowed this to come into your heart and mind and life and all that. So um, and I would say, please feel free to, I'm on Facebook, so feel free to reach out and message me. I'm happy to interact in whatever ways can be helpful to you. I'm sorry for whatever you're going through. I know some of you as I look around here and I want to cry. But thanks for coming and hope that your journey is continues to refine you and to be like God.